What have been the most significant challenges you've faced in integrating ESG philosophies and factors into your investment plans? And where have you found the greatest resistance between objective and practical asset allocation execution?
Yeah, it's definitely not without its challenges. So otherwise, everybody would be done and dusted, right? So it's not as easy. And for us, one of the areas, and I'm sure it gets brought up a lot, we're not unique in this, but it's data and measurement. So we keep coming up against that, how do we measure ESG? How do we even define ESG? How do we kind of separate ESG from non-ESG to understand, where value is added and whether our managers are doing the right thing? How do we measure, carbon footprint, in its totality, including scope 3, where data is a really, really big challenge. So there's so much data that we need that doesn't yet exist, or it exists in kind of on an experimental basis that is then very hard to rely on in decision making. But the good thing is that it's getting much better. So the standards of disclosures are getting much better, from the source, from the corporates that actually are issuing this data. The way we analyze this data is getting better, so it's all improving. So we're in a much, much better position than, we would have been, we were like 10 years ago, for example. And things are moving really fast. So this area is probably one of the fastest developing areas I've ever seen. So data providers in particular are putting a lot of effort into developing these data solutions to help us as investors to assess the companies we invest in, and we're only going to need to do more. So if you think about the net zero transition, so we're now, as a group of investors, alongside the IIGCC, the Institutional Investor Group on Climate Change, we're asking corporates to make proper disclosures of their net zero transition plans so that we can assess them. And it's great, so we want to see those plans. But what if these companies actually all start disclosing these plans in detail? Then, the challenge will be on our side to actually assess all of this. And we're going to have to rely on help from data providers and, other industry participants to try and help do that at scale. Because disclosures is the first great step, but then assessment of that disclosure is going to be the next big challenge. We're going to have too much data, what do we do with that next? So yes, it's that probably data measurement. There's just so many other strands to that that probably won't go into, but that is probably the biggest challenge. In terms of practical execution, I suppose, for me, a really big challenge right now in DC pensions is the fact that we all tend to invest in publicly traded assets rather than private markets. And if you think about, again, ESG and specifically net zero transition, low carbon firms, climate solutions, they tend to be on the private side. So they're new developing businesses with new exciting technologies like carbon capture and storage, or new energy, energy enterprises, renewable energy. There's so much infrastructure in this space, in charging infrastructure, for example, that's going to be built across the whole of UK and globally as well. So there's just so much going on, but it's all on the private side. And there's still a challenge for DC pension funds to access those private market opportunities. But I do hope that right now, given where we are with this in the industry, we're kind of on the brink of being able to unlock those opportunities. And I think that would make a really big difference, both for the future of our members, the future financial position at retirement, but also for the actual low carbon transition globally as well.